I'm here in the St. John the Baptist Church in Warren, where they have a roll of honour remembering the service of those men and women that left from their community. My great-grandfather, Martin Cleveland Pines, was working as a jackaroo in Warren when he enlisted in the 6th Light Horse Regiment with some of his workmates. Cleve, as he was commonly known, embarked on a troop ship on October the 12th, 1915, for Egypt. He fought in Gaza, then moved on to Beersheba, Jaffa, Bethlehem, and Jerusalem, all on his trusty horse Tommy, often having to sleep while riding. On the 12th of July, 1917, Cleve transferred to the 1st Light Car Patrol as driver of car number 1217. They were driving Model T Fords mounted with Lewis machine guns. He embarked on the hospital ship Euripides on the 15th of March 1919 with malaria, arriving home on the 20th of April. In the 3.5 years he was away, his health had severely suffered. Once he recovered, Cleve returned to Warren and continued to live and work on the land. However, he was never the same again. When his family holidayed at Newport, he could not be on the beach for long and would never sit down. After the sand of the desert, he just couldn't bear it. This image shows the first Australian Light Car Patrol lined up at Aleppo railway station. And this is Cleve, sitting in the driver's seat of his Model T Ford. Warren is an example of a small country town that contributed men and women to the war effort. Between 1914 and 1918, 1/3 of the town's population joined the campaign. This included 300 men and 2 women, 41 of which did not come home. Warren was a close community where everyone knew each other. With 1/3 of the men gone, everyone pulled their weight, which wasn't that different as the women in Warren often did the same things as men. I'm standing outside the old Warren Post Office, which is now the Warren Historical Society building. This is where telegrams were received with the news of the death of a soldier. These telegrams were then transported by bike to the wives or mothers of the deceased. The Warren community raised £1,530 for bodies such as the Red Cross and similar organisations that help provide comfort for the troops. This is quite a bit more than places such as Bathurst, Orange, Goulburn, Tamworth and Wagga. The majority of soldiers from Warren were working as farm labourers, stockmen, clerks and fettlers before they enlisted. This image shows a detachment of light horsemen leaving from Warren. While many went off to war, others were exempt from enlisting due to the necessity of their contribution to the war effort. Warren produced wool for uniforms and wheat for flour in support of their diggers. This image is of some Warren women dressed as the crew of HMAS Sydney aboard Reg Noonan's T-Model Ford in 1915. The women at home contributed care packages with things like knitted socks in them. Women also were a moral guard, often convincing their sons and husbands to enlist. When the soldiers returned home from the war, the town held a welcome home party for them at the Warren railway station. Unfortunately, many of the men came back heavily affected by the death and destruction of the war, often drinking a lot. There was one particular chap that would disappear for 6 weeks at a time, then come to town and drink for a week straight before disappearing again. It was also common for the returned soldiers to go into work as rabbiters or other menial labour work in isolation. Many of these men never fully recovered from the horrors of war.
Many men and their horses left from Warren to join the war. The Warren community also donated horses to those men who did not have one and continued to donate throughout the duration of the war. The importance of the horse has not been forgotten, as their service is still remembered at commemorative ceremonies. This is the Warren War Memorial. It is dedicated to those men and women who have lost their lives in the service of their country. The War Memorial was constructed in 1923, well before even Sydney. It is the centre of all commemorative ceremonies in Warren.
We commemorate those that have died in wars to remind ourselves of the sacrifice that others have made in the fight for freedom and peace. With the passing of time, there are fewer and fewer Australians who have personally experienced the horror and loss of war, but also fewer Australians that have felt its sense of camaraderie and achievement, and it is important to keep these memories alive. It is important to commemorate so that we can reflect on events in our past and grow as a society to better our future. It also serves as a way of remembering tragic events and allowing us to learn from the actions of others. It can demonstrate the fragile nature of society under different pressures, and can also demonstrate the way different values, opinions, and ways of thinking can affect people's actions. Anzac Day marks the anniversary of the first major military action conducted by Australian and New Zealand forces in the First World War. On the 25th of April 1915, Anzac forces landed on the Gallipoli Peninsula. While the campaign was ultimately a tragic loss for the Allied forces, the actions of Australian and New Zealand troops during the campaign left a powerful legacy, creating a strong sense of identity for Australia as a young nation. Anzac Day brings the entire country together. Marches and dawn and day services are held all over the country, with many community members and groups involved, such as veterans, RSL clubs, current servicemen and women, scouts, Navy, Army and Air Force cadets, bands, and more. These are videos of the Sydney and Hobart Anzac Day marches, as well as my Navy Cadet unit and the Gosford March. Along with Anzac Day, on the 11th of November, Remembrance Day ceremonies are held across the nation, observing 1 minute silence at 11 a.m. to remember those who died or suffered for Australia's cause in all wars and armed conflicts. The date and time are significant all over the world. They mark the moment when the guns of the Western Front fell silent in 1918 after 4 years of continuous conflict. Helping to preserve these memories are an array of memorabilia in the form of letters, diaries, medals, artworks, film, photographs, and all sorts of other paraphernalia. While Cleve was travelling in Egypt, he sent a letter home to his sister Nance, detailing his travels and some of the conflicts he had been involved in. Cleve also collected or traded clothing accessories from many different nations throughout the war, which had been mounted in this display table. The table was originally on display in the front foyer of the Warren RSL before being given to my family. The Anzac spirit lives on in all Australians, and for Cleve, his spirit lives on in me.